What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield holding it down in the DraftKings studio in Boston, but also me holding it down in the DraftKings studio in Boston.
This is crazy. We're just like right across from each other, and we're both holding it down in the DraftKings studio in Boston.
It's so held down out here. Dad, how left out do you feel right now, scale of 1 to 10?
Well, I feel even more left out because you guys didn't tell me you were doing this. I'm just left out in the cold. I mean, when are we doing the grievances for Christmas? Because I got a lot of them.
Okay.
I got a lot of grievances right now. All of a sudden, you guys, it's a big family party there at the DK Studios, and I'm left out here. I don't know what the hell's going on. What are you doing to the
This
old
is
man?
what happens when you have someone who fundamentally doesn't understand email and technology.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you knew, but...
Yeah.
We talked about it in the meeting yesterday.
We gave you a lot of heads up. What it sounds like is you don't pay attention to anything that we're trying to tell you. You don't listen to anything that we're trying to say.
I think, Mike, your mother might have locked my email account. I don't know.
Oh, she locked it?
Oh, yeah, that's how it works. Yeah, no, that's definitely the smart route to go is blame mom on this one. So I'm going to veer you away from that and remind people that we got a great show for today. And as always, they need to download, subscribe, rate, review. Leave us a 5-star rating and check us out here live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network, DraftKingsNetwork.com, the YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku. Tell a friend. We're on live every day here. We got great guests to help out with that as well. Dianna Russini, senior NFL writer over at The Athletic, is going to join us for some NFL news and notes. We got Kenny Moore, great safety for the Indianapolis Colts, who are right now looking like a playoff team, getting ready to go. So we'll tap in with him as he has been part of backup quarterback mania on that team. And Dad, for the Philadelphia Eagles last night, they become another victim of a backup quarterback around the league doing great things as Drew Lock orchestrates a 92-yard legacy drive to oust the Philadelphia Eagles. The Seahawks get off a 4-game skid, Dad, and do it on the backs of another reminder and another cool performance that I think has been a bigger part of the storyline this year. But what you saw from Drew Lock during the game, after the game, the conversation that he had with Lisa Salters that we'll get to there, it was hard not to be romantic about some of what happened at the end of that game last night.
You know, in this game, the talk was more of the Philadelphia Eagles and could they come back from what they had done. But Seattle, they didn't care about that. They're fighting for their own playoff slot, of which they moved up one from 9th to 8th. So they're still just on the outside looking into this one. They're looking up at the Rams right now, and unfortunately the Rams swept them this year. So, you know, as they try and get into the playoffs, backup quarterback Drew Lock finds out late Geno Smith has the groin. They're not sure if he's going to play. You know, it's one of those where you have to have your inactives up 90 minutes before the game. So what route does it go? And Geno Smith was dressed, though.
I was going to say, he was dressed, and I remember, Dan, I felt like this was in line with what you just saw. I saw Ryan Clark on Monday Night Countdown, who said, if your starting quarterback is dressed, he's going out there and playing, and that's usually the thought process here. So, to your point, Dad, Drew Lock got handed the baton what felt like very late in this process.
And Ryan was absolutely right. You see someone in pads, for the most part, they're going, you know, because that's something like you do in high school. You're not playing in this game, but still put those pads on and be with their team, you know. You don't see that in the NFL. If you're not going to play, you know, usually in your street clothes. So he did find out late, but kudos to him and what he did, especially not only getting the start late in this one in a team fighting for a playoff spot, but here you are down 4 with about $1.52 to go, and you're on your last drive and you got a long way to go, you know, and you drop a couple of dimes in this. First, though, also give credit to DK Metcalf. That one catch he had sliding on the ground, ripping it from James Bradbury, was unbelievable during that drive. And then, what can you say? Drew Lock just dropped 2 dimes, one on the sideline to DK Metcalf, and then to Jackson Smith and Jigba for the touchdown. He dropped that one in. I love the split screen highlight I saw of Smith and Jigba making the exact same catch when he was at Ohio State. But these were great catches, don't get me wrong, but the throws were so right on the money for Drew Lock in the biggest part of the game that he came through for his team. Another backup coming through for their team. That is the story of the year. I had mentioned all the division leaders still had their starting quarterbacks, but you know there are more teams that go in the playoffs than the division leaders. And Drew Lock has helped Seattle stay right in the battle for this. 2 great passes by him.
2 really great passes by him, and overall great effort by this Seahawks team, right? Kenneth Walker III running really well.
Yeah.
They've really leaned into this idea of multiple tight end sets, 2 and 3 tight ends on the field at a time. And last night tried to attack and challenge the Eagles linebackers for all the reasons that we know about the personnel issues there. Julian Love, Notre Dame's very own, with 2 big-time interceptions in this game, including the one that slammed the door shut on the Eagles' final drive. We'll get to some of the decision-making from Philadelphia in this game that was certainly suspect at some critical junctures, and kind of do a checkup on them right now, because this is a team heading into a really easy stretch of games to finish the season that I don't think is going to really change what is ultimately true about this team at this juncture. But I want to get to the interview with Drew Lock after the game.
Yeah.
Goes and leads this drive. You know, our buddy Mina Kimes was on the Manning Cast last night, ESPN NFL analyst, and was talking about, you know, being a Seahawks fan and the dubious nature of watching your backup quarterback going into a primetime matchup like this against one of the better teams in the NFC, and jokingly said, you know, here comes the Drew Lock legacy drive. And sure it was. And he caught up with Lisa Salters after the game. And I want to play the whole sound. It's about a minute here of him explaining not just the play in great detail, but what it did mean for him to get this opportunity again this week.
I mean, I'll remember that play call for the rest of my life, but we're breaking the huddle. I knew Jax had the one-on-one. Good reminder from Shane in the headset. I said, hey, Jax, if you're one-on-one, I'm throwing you this pill. Sure enough, gave us a one-on-one look. Corner was soft. Jax hit him with some speed. Back pylon, back box throw, came down with it.
Again, Drew, we can see the emotion on your face. We can hear it in your voice. Can you just describe what you're feeling in your heart right now?
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard to describe the feeling of, you know, not playing for so long, or at least what feels like a really long time to me. And then you sit there, you watch games, you wonder, can I do this still? I haven't been out there on the field. That's the human nature of it. You get back out there last week, I'm like, you know what? I'm the man still. I can go do this. And then you got another test this week where I didn't know if I was going to play or not. Sure enough, ended up playing. We're playing the Eagles tonight. And the boys around me rallied tonight. And it's just, gosh, it feels so good. It feels so good. I'm so proud of everybody tonight.
And man, kudos to Lisa Salters for pushing all the right buttons in that one. That was really well done. But Dad, it's such a great insight. I think so many people, when they think of backup quarterbacks, they think, oh, what a great job. You hold the clipboard on the sideline. You might run some show team reps during the week. You get paid NFL money. You get to hang out and do all of that, and think that those guys are okay with it. These are all elite competitors who are some of the best players at their college and have been some of the best players at every level of football that they've played at, who are now relegated to doing all of the other parts of the job without the payoff on Sundays. And I think you've seen from so many of these guys what we've talked about with him and with what's going on in Cincinnati, with Joe Flacco in Cleveland, is no, these guys are still competitors that are itching for the opportunity to go out and do the thing they've always done. I
mean, we all have pride, right? I mean, everybody has pride. It's just, you know, when does it show up? Because you're right. Everybody jokes, oh, backup quarterback's the best position out there. You don't get hit. You make all that money, just what you said. But, man, these guys want to play. You're right. These guys were all stars going up through high school and college and getting into the NFL. And now, just what he said there, you kind of doubt it for a minute. You're like, can I still do this? You know, I'm not getting the opportunity. Can I still do it if I get the chance? And obviously it was a big show for him last night, but that was a great trip into the mind of a player who, you know, in 2019 plays 5 games, played his most games ever in 2020 when he played 13, 6 games in 21, nothing last year. And now his first year here, you know, what he's doing in Seattle, this was his 4th game this year, but the game starting and finding out how late he was going to start in this one, it is something for the psyche. You know, we keep talking about the physical aspects of a sport that's a physical sport. But, man, there's so much to the mental side of it as well, of where you have to go, of how you're preparing. You always hear any backup, or a lot of times it's about the quarterback, but any backup, you're one play away. So you're preparing week in and week out like you're the starter, like you're going to get on the field. And then for a lot of times in Drew Lock's career, he just stood there. He just stood there and didn't get in. So you finally are like, my God, am I going to get a chance? And if I get a chance, what am I going to be able to do with it? Because guys, like Drew Lock or backups, when you get your chance, if you go out there and screw it all up and look horrible, there's a chance it'll be a long time before you get back on the field again. So while starters get all the reps, get a lot of leeway until they possibly get injured or the play is just so bad, backups don't really. You don't get the majority of the snaps in practice, and then boom, you're in the game and you're called upon. Now go get the job done. And he did tonight. But that was a great trip into the psyche of a backup.
You saw him putting it out all on the line there early in that game, that first Kenneth Walker touchdown for them. Drew Lock going and throwing blocks in the end zone. It played like a guy. I always harken back to the phrase from one of my old teammates who somersaulted into the end zone, got a penalty on a scoop and score. And they said, we think about acting like you've been there before. He said, I act like I'm never going back. Drew Lock played like a guy that didn't know when his next crack at this was going to be. And I thought the other cool part of that, you talk about a window into the different bond between teammates. Him talking after the game about Geno Smith and what a great teammate he was to him during the week and how supportive he's been during the last couple of weeks. Geno Smith, the guy who knows all about Drew Lock's perspective and what he's been through as a guy who had been the man for a while, had gotten the opportunity and then didn't know when it was going to come back again. They wrote me off. I didn't write back. I thought that was a really cool reminder. So many people see quarterback battles from the outside or see these rooms and think it must be contentious, when in reality, most of these guys understand the perspective of what someone's going through like that better, and usually are going to do whatever it takes to help. That's why we always call it the ultimate team game. So for Seattle, their playoff hopes stay alive after that 4-game skid. They're just on the outside looking in with the Rams team right now, who owns some tiebreakers with them. But the Rams have to play the 49ers to end this season, and the Seahawks don't. And that is a huge leg up if you're this Seahawks team right now. On the other side, Jesse, we got to do a checkup from the neck up on the Philadelphia Eagles, and that probably starts with their quarterback, who we actually have to do a checkup on because he was playing a sick game last night.
A physical checkup because he was throwing up, and he was questionable to play with an illness going into this one. And he had a difficult night. You could tell he had been throwing up. He had 13 carries for 82 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he was just 17 of 31 passing for 143 yards, and then the 2 picks there. Now, as a reminder, like we said, he was unable to practice because of this illness. He flew separately from the team on a private jet. Wasn't clear that he was going to play until the list of inactive players was announced 90 minutes before kickoff for this one. And Hurts, in the post-game presser, he was hard on himself, and he had an interesting little sort of slip here.
We didn't execute. I don't think we're committed enough. Just got to turn it around. It's a challenge that we have to embrace. Just continue to see it through.
What do you mean by that, about being committed enough?
Commitment. I don't know that. I had a dictionary on me now. Excuse me. I don't know how else to say that.
Okay, that was definitely a slip, the commitment thing, and he sort of started trying to backtrack the minute he realized that it came out of his mouth. But guys, this is the Eagles' 3rd straight loss. You got Jalen Hurts up there saying not everybody's committed. So what's going on here? How concerned are we?
Yeah, my tendency, Dad, was to, at the beginning, read into this, because I remember I had SportsCenter on post-game, and usually they throw to these press conferences, and you don't get a whole lot. And I heard this, and I kind of perked up for a second, and then you really sort of think about it. Jalen Hurts, I'm sure, was getting IVs, was on all sorts of medicine, is sick going into this game, goes out there and lets the adrenaline take over for 3.5 hours, and then coming down off that. To me, Dad, that sounds a lot more like a guy who was just trying to, cliche buzzword his way through the interview in a way that he's normally very good at. Jalen Hurts is one of the most thoughtful athletes that we have, that just in that moment realized, that might sound like I'm coming at someone on my team. Let me try and moonwalk away from this. I don't know if you felt any different.
Oh, yeah. As soon as he said it, I think he realized he shouldn't have said it and kept going with his answer. And then you knew that next question was coming, which is a completely fair question to ask. What do you mean you guys are committed? At that point, I'd have said, guys, I'm on so much cold medicine right now, I don't know what I'm saying. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be asked about it again. You know, the other teammates are going to be asking about it. It's going to happen. And, you know, it's fair to ask when the reporters go in the locker room, hey, after the game, Jalen, and I don't know what other interviews happened then, but back in Philly, it's going to be Jalen said, you know, there was a lack of commitment. You know what he's talking about. So it will be interesting the next time Jalen talks and what he says about that. And so putting that aside for a moment, and looking at the game, if you drop down, Mike, and look at the stats of this game, you would think Philly won the game, right? I mean, they had 23 to 16 more first downs. They had more total yards. They held the ball for, I think, 6 or 7 more minutes. They ran for more yards, 178 to 100, and lost this game. Throwing the ball, Jalen wasn't great, a couple of interceptions. What I didn't understand is, so give Seattle credit, they take the lead, 28 seconds to go. Philly's got the ball. Philly's got timeouts. They get the ball to their 45-yard line. There's 13 seconds to go. They still have 2 timeouts. Your kicker, now, I don't know if he's going to tie his career long because the weather's kind of crappy, and Jake Elliott is 61 yards. So that means you need to get to basically the 43-yard line of Seattle to get where he has kicked his biggest one, his biggest field goal. That's not even 15 yards. You have 13 seconds and you have 2 timeouts, which gives you still the entire field to use. And Seattle had been playing a little softer at that point. I do not understand the call. Ben Johnson's the O coordinator, between him and Nick Sirianni, that they go with this long ball down the sideline. I know at times you do it to maybe get the interference call, but you got a corner on there, you got a safety and Julian Love coming over the top who makes a great interception. I did not understand that play at all, Mike.
No, and I think both interceptions came in junctures where you weren't understanding why the Eagles were trying to force the ball over the top. When you're right, the underneath work had been there all night. The places where the Eagles offense had been so good on their best days, getting the ball to the tight end, getting the ball to A.J. Brown in the middle of the field, running the ball with Jalen Hurts, who was your leading rusher again last night. There were a lot of positive signs for the Eagles where you felt like, all right, this is them getting back on track. Their 3 scoring drives were all 12 or more plays, were all at least 4.5 minutes. They were the kind of sustained things that we had become accustomed to. Jalen Hurts in this game tied Cam Newton back in 2011 for the most rushing touchdowns in a season by a quarterback, with now 14 on the year, I believe. And so you look at that and you think, all right, we're getting there, but it still felt disjointed. It still felt like in those critical junctures that they weren't necessarily sure what they wanted to do. Right. And then on the other side, defensively, I know so much got made out of the Matt Patricia play calling switch leading into this game. Nick Sirianni said after the game, that was my decision. It starts with me there. All the things you'd expect to say. But, Dad, it was the same personnel problem there. Keely Ringo's got to slide in on the back end because you've got the injury to Darius Slay. The linebacker core was clearly targeted by Seattle, who used all those tight ends, did all that east-west stuff to try and make those guys tackle in space. And again, the personnel showed up. The thing that surprised me most, Dad, was how often it seemed like that Eagles interior defensive line that's so good and's got so much talent was getting rolled off the ball by the Seattle offensive line and getting run on by Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet.
And that was a part of the defense that you thought of the most, is that D line kind of keeping that defense together, because they've had issues at linebacker and secondary. But, you know, as we sit here and look at it, they now dropped to 5th. As Dallas went up to number 2. But, I mean, Philadelphia finishes with the Giants, Arizona, and the Giants. Dallas finishes with Miami, Detroit, and Washington. 24 wins on the Dallas side and 13 wins on the Philly side of teams left who they're playing. They should win this out, and they should win the division. But this is a team that's won a Super Bowl and been to the Super Bowl last year. They do not look anywhere near that. And this could be some false advertising with these last 3 games.
Yeah, I was going to say the final month of the season doesn't seem like it's going to be a great indicator right now. While you hope the Eagles continue to get healthier and can get closer to playing their best football, you're right. Relative to the standard around there, right now, this does not seem like a team that you can trust for a deep postseason run, and certainly not trust to square off against the 49ers in the NFC.
To GoJo and Golic. Here's something that everybody saw coming. After losing to the Dolphins on Sunday, the Jets have officially been eliminated from playoff contention. Here's a look at all the teams who are officially sidelined from the playoffs. Patriots, Jets, Titans out in the AFC, Panthers, Cardinals, Commanders are out in the NFC. And now all eyes are on Aaron Rodgers and if he's going to make a return to play with the Jets' playoff dreams dead. So we've all said this is sort of hinging on, at this point in the season, like, what if the Jets are still alive here? So his 21-day practice window, which the Jets opened late last month, expires this week. So the team's got to make a decision to activate him or what they're going to do, officially end his season. And listen up, everybody. Robert Saleh says Aaron wants to play.
Aaron wants to play. Let's not confuse that one. That's why he's been working so hard to get back, and his willingness to play, even if he's not even 100%, is at the forefront of his mind. Like he wants to go, but like I said, until he's actually cleared, I'm not going to talk about it with anybody.
I swear to God, this man is going to play a snap of football. I've been saying it since day one. He's out to prove a point. His mind is more powerful than his body. He can heal himself with his mind. I don't know where this is going, but I'm telling you, Aaron Rodgers is going to play a snap of football.
Walking around the studio this morning, banging her sword on the table, reminding all of us, I want you to cut every time I've said Aaron Rodgers is going to play. She wants to parade of gas bags, me and Dad and everybody else who's doubted him at this point right now. And Dad, to support Jesse on this a little bit, I'd say the thing she has going for us, Aaron Rodgers is a total wild card. We don't know what this guy's ever going to do, and it's certainly not going to be the Jets who have any control over him, because as we've seen, this is a hapless franchise who still doesn't have a real grasp on what it takes to win, and they've got one guy in the building who actually knows what goes on with that, and he's the one calling the shots. They need him more than he needs them right now, and so what he wants is what he's going to get. But, Dad, I don't know how he could have watched that game against the Dolphins this last weekend and thought, you know what I want to do with my newly repaired Achilles? I want to go out there and get sacked 6 times and hit 14 times behind an offensive line that, I mean, we're going to talk about Zach Wilson and all the stuff with him. I don't know what they wanted him to do. There was nothing. There was no time. As soon as he was turning around, that dude was getting flattened by Bradley Chubb or Christian Wilkins or any number of defenders there. So if Aaron wants that life, I have to question his sanity, maybe more than his Achilles at this point.
Well, Aaron wants to get on the field to show that I did this. I said I was going to do this, and I did this. And I can do this. Now, the Jets should by no means put him on the field. They should not put him on the squad. They should put him on IR for the rest of the year. That's tomorrow is the day they have to do it by Wednesday. Decide if he's going on the roster. If not, he has to stay on IR for the rest of the year. Outside of him saying, if you guys don't put me on the active roster and let me play, I'm not going to play for you guys next year, there is no way I'd put him out there. It's also a roster spot. You know, they would have to cut somebody or they have to move somebody around to put him on the active roster. And, all those spots are important at this point, but Aaron Rodgers is the most important thing out there. Listen, we all know there's no way he should be on the field. There is zero win for this organization to put him on the field. The only quote-unquote win is Aaron Rodgers saying, I'm going to make it back by the end of the season, and him making it back by the end of the season. That would be the only win of this. But you've got to look, the Jets have to look at the bigger picture of this thing and do not let him have a helmet and go on that field. That would be the dumbest move of a lot of dumb moves they have made to put Aaron Rodgers at risk of re-injuring that thing. That would be colossally stupid.
And I wouldn't blame, I don't know, it'd be hard to blame them in this one because Aaron Rodgers is the one who I'm sure would be pushing for that. Although, I will say, Aaron has been pretty candid, and all the times we've seen him on McAfee or anywhere else, that it was going to be how I feel at this point. And we know there's a massive delta between being cleared to go back out and practice and even being cleared to play and actually being physically capable of going and doing that in the NFL. Aaron knows that standard better than anyone possibly could with what it takes to not only go back out there, but to go back out there and play well. And as said, it's tied to that, and it's tied to if we have a reasonable shot at the postseason. And now that that's gone, I do wonder if it'll sink in hey, I've done what I set out to do. I've already come back further and faster than most anyone else deemed even close to possible. Now let me also understand that I'm not going to have that many shots at the end of my career to go out here and be able to get back and try and win again at the level I have. He's a guy that's nearing 40. That's the reality of the situation for Aaron, and one more injury would likely be the career ender at this point. So I think that's probably going to be the case there. So, Dad, the Jets do bring up an interesting conversation. Jesse mentioned all the teams that are out of the playoff run right now here. Are they the most disappointing team in the NFL this year? When we look at how we framed the season to now, were they the biggest letdown of the season based off what we were sold at the beginning and what we bought now?
No, I'm not doing that to them because they lost the most important part of it. So the expectations immediately dropped 4 plays into their season. So while it's a disappointing season for them, I'm not going to say they're the most disappointing team. If they had this record and Aaron Rodgers was a quarterback all year, I would say absolutely. But I'm not going to put that on them because of that quarterback injury. To me, it's the Chargers, Mike. I mean, the Chargers were 10-7 last year. They do have that collapse in the playoffs, but they were still in the playoffs. So the expectation is the next step. And they have been awful. They have been absolutely awful this year, and you have weapons. Even though you lost Mike Williams, you still have Keenan Allen, who I think is 4th in the league, 3rd or 4th in receiving yards. You have Austin Eckler, who was nicked up a little early, but you have him, and Herbert, who was setting all kind of records his first year, with yardage. The defense has certainly let you down, and that's Brandon Staley's side of the ball. But to me, that's been the most disappointing team. They've gone, like I said, 10-7 last year. They're 5-9, so they're guaranteed a losing record. So to me, because they had just about all their ammo, save for Mike Williams, that they would be better than they were. So that's where I would go.
It's a good point, and I think with the Chargers every year, they're the ultimate I'm ready to get hurt again at the beginning of every season. Yeah. I should know better at this point and do better, but I don't because the names and the talent are so tantalizing, and they've got one of the halves at quarterback, and so that's a good pick. I thought the Panthers, in this case, for me, maybe it was just misguided, but we talked about with C.J. Stroud and with Bryce Young, maybe there's a great opportunity for them to succeed this year because when you looked at the rosters for Carolina and for Houston, there seemed to be a little more than most of us were used to. We talked about the protection that C.J. Stroud had in Houston. I thought that we were going to have something similar for Bryce Young in Carolina, bringing back all their starting 5 on the offensive line, investing in high-end draft capital like Ike Ekwonu and left tackle and some of these guys. And instead, they give up the 4th most sacks allowed in football this year. We look at their receiving room, and nobody steps up outside of Adam Thielen, who we all thought was done before the season started. And even defensively, it started to wear on a group that's got some talented guys in it by the end. Your coach ends up fired, and that franchise, forget even just Bryce Young and his future there, the franchise under their current ownership seems like one that's teetering on becoming a Jetsian level of inept. And so I look at them from where we started the season to where we end now in the way we view the franchise, not even just the team, has taken such a stark dip.
Well, the owner, just shows his colors with how quickly he pulls these decisions. I mean, it's not just his football team that he's done, other things he's owned as well. So that, as we've talked about, a new coach who you're going to try and get is going to look at who's the owner and who's the quarterback. Now, it will be interesting for them as a quarterback who obviously just finishes his rookie year, so he's on a rookie deal, is what they do to continue to help build this team, where they go a wide receiver, how they restructure some of the things they're going to do. I get it. They were a disappointment. I don't know how many wins I expected. They have 2. I certainly expected a little bit more than that. But I'll be interested where they go coaching-wise and how they spend their money in the offseason.
And for a lot of these teams now, it's what's the sell to the next prospective head coach. We talked about the Chargers the other day having Justin Herbert to hold up. And now it's going to be for a coach. Do you want to come in and be in charge of the revitalization project that is Bryce Young in year 2? GoJo and Golic. We got some worrying news out of Nashville. Derrick Henry said he's pondering his future after a frustrating loss to the Texans that knocked the Titans out of playoff contention. Henry's performance Sunday was his worst as a starter, just 9 yards on 16 carries. Now, he entered the game averaging 203.6 rushing yards in his past 5 games against Houston. So definitely a decline there. Now, the Titans are going to make a decision regarding Henry, who's set to become a free agent after his 4-year, $50 million contract that he signed with them runs out after this season. It signed that in 2020. And he's getting very introspective about the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely today. You had that feeling. We had hope of kind of slipping in there, and then being eliminated. There's 3 games left. I've been here my whole career. Definitely want to go out strong, which that isn't the case. But just try to give them all these last 3 games and leave it all on the field.
You
mean, he said go out strong there. You heard him.
Yeah, that is a man who seems like he might be like, we have to check real estate Twitter to see if they're starting to like list homes or anything there, because that seems like a guy that's sort of making peace with the situation there, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of read the writing on the wall there for a guy. I'll never forget seeing him in person the first time was at the draft that was in Tennessee a few years back, and I had to do a gig, and it was with him. So we were back in the green room, and he came walking in, and I was just like, my God. I mean, how are linebackers and DBs tackling him? And people would always ask, how is you as a D lineman, you like to tackle that? I said, we have it good. We kind of can hit him before he builds up full speed. He's not stiff arming, between the tackles. So we can kind of wrap him up, and we're bigger than him. So that helps. But what a freaking size. Going to be 30 January 4th. So even as this season is finishing, he is going to turn 30. And we hear that number with running backs, what 30 does, and he's at the end of his deal. Now, Tennessee has, I think, $92 million in cap space. So they probably could sign him. I don't know what he's going to be looking for. He does have a career low right now in yards per carry at 3.8. He'll probably finish, if on average holds, he's averaging about 16 carries a game. He'll probably finish at about 280 carries for the year. He was over 300 3 times, so he's still the workhorse. Does he now go to a team where it's more the norm, Mike, is a two-man show in the backfield? He has been the sole guy for so long, and that's been kind of pushed away in the NFL to like these two-headed monsters. And you wonder if that keeps his career going for another X amount of years by splitting time. Being a thunder and lightning, he's definitely a thunder guy. There's no doubt about it. So I wonder if that's the process. If he's going to leave Tennessee, does he go somewhere? I don't expect a monster deal at this point, but somewhere where he could preserve the career and go a little longer because he's now splitting time in the backfield.
Yeah, and I'm sure it depends what he wants at this point, too. Right now, the interesting part is pretty much every running back that we talked about last offseason, remember, signed either some version of a franchise tag or the one-year deal. So they're all getting ready to be free agents again this offseason. So you're going to have a group that includes Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler. Now, some of the teams might play the tag game again. There's still some control that we know exists with this position, but it's going to be what the marketplace looks like and then what he's going to try and go for, Dad, because part of the step back, I think, in production this year is also looking at Tennessee's situation, right?
Yeah.
Big turnover in a lot of the offensive line situation around there. You go to a rookie quarterback midway through the season now and have to sort of ride the wave of what Will Levis is going to go through in his early development process. And if Derrick Henry at this point, who has been a part of their teams when he's been the rushing champion and they've been a playoff team when they were the 1 seed a couple of years ago, does he want to go try and maybe latch on to a contender and do some of that right now? Because we've seen, Dad, for a guy that's of his age and with his kind of mileage on him, Zeke Elliott's the only comp out there. Derrick Henry is the second active leader in career carries behind only Ezekiel Elliott. Both of them came in their first season in 2016 right now. Derrick Henry has 1,980 carries. The next closest behind him is Melvin Gordon, who's a year older and has almost 400 fewer, has exactly actually 400 fewer carries than Derrick Henry at this point, but we've still seen him be able to be productive in recent seasons. So he does have something to afford a team there. It's going to be like with the rest of these guys. What's the price tag looks like, and then what is he looking for potentially and willing to maybe take less for because of that?
You use that term, tread on the tires. What does he have left? His tires were pretty stout, though,
man,
as far as handling these carries. But, you mentioned the comp of Zeke Elliott, so you wonder if that comp goes that. Remember, Zeke was the man, right? And then all of a sudden he's splitting times with Pollard, and then everybody's like, wait, Pollard should be getting more of these carries. And it did start going to Pollard, and all of a sudden Zeke's gone, and he's in New England. So you wonder what the future is here. And as I've always talked about, it does not matter the sport. And you said it right at the beginning of this, Mike, what does Derrick Henry want? It's not going to be a money play because he's not getting a 4-year, $50 million deal again. He's had his biggest contract. There's no shot. I'd love to see him get it. I'd love to see these guys get all they can, but that's not happening. So is it still the most money he can get? Is he comfortable in Tennessee there and wants to stay there? Is he looking for a ring? So is he looking to be a free agent and says, I'll split time on a really good team somewhere? Is it geographical for him? Does he want to be somewhere else around the country? These are all things we don't know unless he is going to tell us that. But these are things that go into a guy who's had a very successful career, has made some good money, especially from what that position asks of you on what he wants to do right now. But if he lets money guide his way here, Mike, I don't think he's going to be able to go where he wants to go, because we've seen it. And I just don't see a 30-year-old getting offered that big-time contract. So I wonder where he and his agent think he will fit into the pay scale, because as you mentioned, there's going to be a lot of younger running backs out there who are free agents as well.
You mentioned the idea of maybe being in a backfield that splits the carries a little more. That's what he's in now. Tyjae Spears, who came over there out of Tulane, has been a guy that doesn't have he has about the same amount of carries this season, I believe, as Henry. Spears has 410 snaps. So it's more about the same snaps. One fewer snaps,
yeah, not carries,
than him this season.
Yeah.
Obviously, carries hasn't been split there, but the idea that you've got someone else in that backfield who they're clearly comfortable getting on the field a little bit more, maybe that's appealing. Like you said, for the comfort factor there. I do wonder overall, Dad, looking at the running back situation now, because you're right, 30 was the clip before. We're seeing that creep up now in the way that people view this position. I wonder if any of the guys that we talked about last year have improved their station enough to get more out of their present deal. The only one that really comes to mind is Saquon Barkley, just because we've seen, as most of the Giants' offense failed to take another step forward this season, and as Daniel Jones dealt with not only injury but a lack of production before that, Saquon Barkley was really the only consistent force for them for a long portion of this season. We didn't see that rewarded last time around, so I still have concerns about it being rewarded again.
Yeah, I agree there. So I really don't think money can be the monster issue here. For him, you can't assume either, but I'm sure he'd love a ring, right? He's one of the great running backs of this time for his size and what he's done. I'm sure he'd like to put a ring on it. So where does that leave him going? Then he's going, you want to go to one of the top teams, and what's a running back situation at a top team? Are they already kind of splitting time with someone else? Is it someone who's getting most of the carries? You'd be willing to, obviously, like I said, split carries and split reps, which he started doing, as you mentioned, a little more this year from snaps, not so much actual carries. So that's going to be the big thing. What is on his mind? Because I'm sure there would be a lot of contending teams next year going into the season that would love to have him on the team, but obviously it would have to be the right price, knowing he is going to split time.
Yeah, we can talk about having a lot of mileage on you. Derrick Henry has consistently defied anything that we have thought about what you should be able to do at a particular size, how well he moves, the workload that he has shouldered year after year for this team. So count him out at your own risk. That man is big and scary when he hits the hole, and I am not going to be the one that tells him no on that. Coming up next, though, where were you for one of the greatest moments in Bull history? Toast everywhere. Next on GoJo and Golic. So we've got a new entrant, Dad, into the conversation for best bowl game sponsorship item to potentially be bathed in or bathe in last night. The famous Toastery Bowl, the first and likely last of its kind, took place yesterday between Western Kentucky and Old Dominion. I say the last of its kind because this bowl game didn't exist in this form a year ago. This used to be the Steve Levy Fest down there in the Bahamas. This used to be the Bahamas Bowl, but because of construction that was going on there, they had to move the game to Charlotte, North Carolina, which, spoiler alert, not very similar to the Bahamas, having been to both. And so they named it the famous Toastery Bowl, which we found out famous Toastery is a fast casual dining restaurant with wonderful toast options. And you saw at the end of the game, Dad, Western Kentucky completes a 28-point comeback in this game. Phenomenal overtime thriller. And on the field after the game, you saw tons of players throwing toast. There's just toast out there getting tossed everywhere. I think I saw one of the players making a toast angel on the field. So where does that rank for you, Dad, among the things that we've seen? The famous Idaho Potato Bowl French fries, obviously the Cheez-It Bowl, the Duke's Mayo Bowl that I'm very fond of, for you as far as bowl game sponsors getting in on the dump action.
Well, I mean, it's unique, right? It's something we hadn't seen before. Still, to me, getting mayo dumped on you is one of the great things of all time. And every coach would say before the game, yes, I want that. That means we won the game, until the mayo's getting dumped on your head and you realize how long you got to be in the shower to get all that stuff off of you. I like it for its uniqueness. I'm not sure how far, you're throwing toast around. I'm going to say the coolness of that kind of wears off quickly. You're throwing a piece of bread. I mean, what I'm glad didn't happen, that is not a dome stadium they play in. Could you imagine birds? If all of a sudden there were a lot of birds there saying, you know what?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of food getting thrown down there. All of a sudden there was just a mass of birds just descending upon the field,
just trying to pick up the toast. Geese coming over there and pecking at just tired players who are thinking.
Could end very poorly.
Not fully thought out there. So I'd agree with you, Dad, on that one. I still think the mayo reigns supreme. I think if I was a coach or a player, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, getting French fries dumped on me would be the most appealing in that. But I do appreciate it. It looks like it reminds me of graduation when everyone throws the caps up right now, with everyone throwing all the toast in the air. I would hope a couple of the big fellas took a bite. Dad, this game also a very big sign of the times in terms of the headlines coming off this one. We mentioned it's a 28-point comeback in this game. Caden Veldkamp, redshirt freshman quarterback, was getting his first start in this game. He's the son of their strength coach at Western Kentucky there. Been a guy who hadn't played much at all this year, and had actually back in November announced putting his name into the transfer portal, said he was going to go through, play the bowl game with his teammates, and then enter the transfer portal. Then he goes out in this game and helps orchestrate the win, has one of the games of his life in this one. I'm trying to pull the stats up here now.
Oh, yeah.
Give me a second.
He had himself a ball game. There's no doubt about it. He went
40 of 52, 383 yards, 5 touchdowns and an interception, and had 19 carries for 53 yards. He was the offense in this game. It was electric. And after the game, Dad started hinting that, he's not sure if he's going to stay in the portal now. Western Kentucky has asked him to come back originally, but as a tight end. And so now might be reconsidering that. So that is, to me, Dad, modern college football in a nutshell in this game with what happened.
And again, for the game, they were down 35-14 going into the fourth quarter, and Veldkamp throws 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, outscoring Old Dominion 21-zip, tying it up, and then they get a field goal in overtime to win that one. And again, when you're here to play tight end next year, he's 6'6", 235. So he actually does have the size of a tight end. But if he wants to play quarterback, Mike, there may be a team out there, if he's in the portal, a team, from a Power 5 that says, you know what? Young, big, strong arm. Maybe we're going to bring him on into our program, especially if he doesn't want to play tight end. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunity for him, whether it's Power 5 or not, to go somewhere else and play quarterback if he wants to continue to play quarterback. Because the thing about it is, He's a freshman. He can go play quarterback somewhere. If he's no good, he can transfer him back to Western Kentucky and play tight end.
Or maybe Western Kentucky will look at the film from this game and go, maybe we should let the quarterback play quarterback instead of trying to make the quarterback play tight end. We'll see if they've updated their software at all. But, Dan, if we're going to talk about the modern college football landscape,
yes,
we got the biggest news rocking that as we are getting towards the second signing window here coming up. We know that there's the first National Signing Day back in December, and now what had been the signing day back when I was coming up, this was the only one back in the day. And on the eve of that, we get some of the biggest news in the sport as the top quarterback, the top pocket passer, according to ESPN in the 2024 class, Dylan Raiola, the son of Dominic Raiola, the former Nebraska great offensive lineman, longtime NFL center, announces that he was flipping his commitment, had been committed to the Georgia Bulldogs for some time, was originally an Ohio State commit, and now announced that he is actually going to go and play his football for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And Dad did it in the form of this poem that he posted online. In the realm of college dreams where purpose takes flight, enter Dylan Raiola, crafting his narrative in the night. Once lured by Georgia, where powerhouse glory gleamed, yet Nebraska's purpose in his heart brightly beamed. In the scarlet and cream where legacies entwine, Dylan, like Rodgers, Rozier, Crouch, a hero in the line. No longer a cog in some powerhouse machine, but a quarterback with an even grander ambition unseen. So fellow fans await with hope in the air for Dylan to choose his purpose to declare. In a weekend's decision, destiny calls to fulfill his purpose where a new dynasty enthralls. I hope the English department gives him class credit for that. That young man went above and beyond in an era of weird commitment graphics, Dad, to give us that beauty on his way into Nebraska.
So what I'm going to ask, what I got stuck on there is, what's the grander ambition going to Nebraska?
Maybe to be the guy, and we figured this is probably part of the sell, right? A guy who has an affinity for the school already and said, cog in a powerhouse machine. So this idea that going to Georgia, you're just another guy. And if we're looking for reasons around this, obviously most people assume Nebraska donors probably ponied up some money to go out there and give Matt Rule what he needs to go fishing in the portal, or not the portal even, but in recruiting for this guy. Right. And maybe the idea that, we saw Carson Beck announce he's going to come back for his senior season at Georgia. And so maybe he looks at it and says, hey, I can go just be another guy there at a place that's already this factory and incredible school that's accomplished a lot. Or in his mind, I can come and be the thing and the sell that as always is. I can come help lift Nebraska back to glory, this place that I love so much.
So he's made a lot of moves. He's played at a few different high schools. Before he went to Georgia, he was 20 minutes from me here in Arizona at Pinnacle High School as the number one recruit. Moved to Georgia to play in high school ball down there because he had committed to Georgia, and then now jumped to Nebraska. Again, as you mentioned, Dominic Raiola, his dad, who I actually covered his last game in a bowl game against Northwestern where he destroyed everybody on the field. I just wonder times at Mike, at times do these guys outthink themselves, in the fact that, okay, Georgia's one of the best programs out there. I'm sure Dylan Raiola wants to go play in the NFL. And sitting a year while another quarterback plays his senior year is not the worst thing in the world to do. You still have some years to play, and the talent you're going to get around you at Georgia. To go to Nebraska, if this is about the money as well, now, again, he wants to make his own money. That Dominic Raiola did pretty well in the NFL, making some money. So I don't imagine they're hurting there. So I just wonder sometimes if players are looking at the immediate as opposed to long-term, even though he could go to Nebraska for 1 year, not like it, and move on.
I was just going to say, I think the long-term is kind of a misnomer now, because you're right. He can go here, try and play immediately for a lot of these high-profile five-star guys that think, I'll go 3 and out, I'll do my time, and I'll try and get to the NFL as fast as I can. But if it doesn't work out year one in Nebraska for a team that was, I think, 90th in sacks allowed and has other holes on the offense that they certainly need to plug here, then yeah, I'm sure one of those other schools see what just happened with Dante Moore, who went from Oregon to UCLA and now back to Oregon, would gladly have him on the other side of this if it did go south. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield, and with so much going on, both on and off the field in the NFL right now, we figure we needed help from one of our favorite people, Dianna Russini, senior NFL insider over at The Athletic, joining us now here on the show. And Dianna, I think of you for a number of reasons when it comes to NFL subjects. You're one of the best reporters out there. You've always been a great friend to us. But I also know you're very proud of your Italian heritage, and I've thought of you a lot with everything that's gone on with Tommy DeVito lately, with his agent and all the gesticulating on the sideline here. And I haven't had a chance to catch up with you on this front here. What's it been like watching this all play out, especially so close to where you are?
So I've received tons of phone calls and text messages from people encouraging me to really get on that story, right? Because everyone's pretty simple-minded when it comes to this. They see this Italian kid with this Italian agent, and they think, well, I only really know one other Italian that's very Italian, and it's Dianna. So everyone's like, you got to get on the story. This is made for you. But I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, what's the story? We know the story. The story is right in front of us, right? Like, we're seeing this incredible journey of someone with very small chances to have success, is having success. Maybe not so much this past weekend, but the hope that he's given so many players, and I think just people in general this time of year, I think has been pretty incredible. And he went to high school right around the block from where I actually live. And people have signs in their windows like DeVito. People are now way more prideful about being Italian. I see more Italian flags in the town I live in. I don't think these people are Italian. I think there's just this excitement for someone. And, you know, I feel like over the years, I've struggled with the Italian culture because it comes in waves, as you've noticed, right? Like, when Sopranos was good, it was like so cool to be Italian. Then Jersey Shore comes out and everyone's like, I'm Irish, I'm German. Yeah. Nope. None of that. Like, my last name is actually Rusinowitz. So it just ebbs and flows. And we've, even in politics, you've seen some Italians, and I'm like, oh, I hide underneath the couch. Then UConn women win, and Gino Auriemma's up there, and I'm like, Italians! You know? So Italians are trendy right now, but I'm smart enough to know, guys, this isn't gonna last. Some Italian out there is gonna mess this up for us. So I have been staying away from it. I know better.
They are playing into it. Kudos to them that they are playing into it so much, because sometimes you get afraid to play into the stereotypes, but they're leading the way in playing into the stereotypes. It's been amazing. But from the football side, let's get, because that last thing you said, it's not going to last. We've seen guys we've never heard of all of a sudden become starters in the league. We've seen guys we never heard of get a chance as a backup and then completely disappear. Is at least Tommy DeVito putting himself in position to go in as the number 2 to the Giants next year? Or is that still like, we're really not sure about you?
The building believes in him. Do they believe in the hype that we've seen, especially in the New York, New Jersey area? No. Like, I've had a bunch of conversations. They're even amazed how much attention he's been getting. Like, can you believe this? It's a headline every single day. And you're right. Like, I do give the family credit for, not even credit. I just appreciate the approach of, let's lean in. Let's make the best of this. Who knows? Now, whether or not they actually believe this is going to last or not, that's to be decided. I'm going to guess they probably believe that this is going to go for a while, right? Because you can't make it at this level without the belief that you're one of the guys, that you can make it. But at least from the Giants' perspective, and guys, just locally here, the sports talk radio chatter is really Giants fans calling in, trying to make a case for him to take over for Daniel Jones' spot at number 1.
Oh, God.
Right?
Wow.
So I know we're talking number 2, but I've heard enough, and I've been listening to way more sports talk in the car lately, because it's really been a bizarre time in this area between the Jets and the Giants, and I just love to hear what people have to say. And It's obviously not a reality. Like I don't want to say it's not a reality, but the New York Giants are not approaching this with him taking over for Daniel Jones. But him competing to try to win that number 2 spot, that is 1,000% on the table.
You mentioned the Jets portion of this also, and I kind of chuckled when you were describing riding the wave of Italian heritage and all the headlines associated with it, and knowing that you don't want to get in too much. It sounded a lot like being a Jets fan and talking to Stu Gotts leading up to this season. With all the Aaron Rodgers hype, he was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and we've seen it drop pretty hard, Dianna. But in a year where we've seen so many teams have to deal with quarterback turnover and find their way to make it work on the other side, is there starting to be some criticism of Rob Saleh and the way this organization has navigated what's been a disaster of a season for them?
Yeah, and I think that's the problem is Jets fans are seeing other teams like the Cleveland Browns, like the Cincinnati Bengals, solve the issue, not make excuses. Well, we lost our quarterback 4 plays in. They're like, let's just figure out how to win the game. We'll come together and coach them up and make an effort. And yet you see the Jets, it's almost like they wanted the entire season to just end the second Aaron Rodgers was hurt. And it's almost like that was the philosophy. And that's not, in the building, that's not what they're saying. That's not what they said even when Aaron went down. Were there concerns? Absolutely. Were they worried about the season after that? Yeah. But the fact that they haven't really shown a lot of resilience is certainly an issue and very concerning. And you bring up the Robert Saleh job security. And Mike, it's just always been described to me the same way, which is if Aaron wants him, Robert Saleh is going to stay. So as much as you see this game against the Miami Dolphins, where players in the locker room after the game are admitting that this wasn't a good game plan, that they didn't come prepared, which, as you know, when players are saying that, when they're starting to point the finger on the coaching, especially this time of year, you start to really have concerns and worries for the direction of this team and if whether or not Robert Saleh is the right head coach for them. But if Aaron wants it, Aaron will get it. And right now, the big conversation is Aaron wants to play. He wants to get back out there. We know he's making this absolutely incredible historic return of this Achilles injury, and he's out at practice. And from what I can gather, I don't believe he's going to play, but he's certainly doing everything to get the Jets, or at least try to convince them to give him a shot to go out there.
Dianna, I mean, of all the bad decisions the Jets have made over the years, putting him on the field would be right up there as one of the worst. As I said earlier, outside of Aaron saying, if you don't let me play, because I said I was going to play, if you don't let me play, I'm not going to play for you next year. I'll be a whatever, which he's not going to do. There is no chance I would give him a helmet. And again, we have to know by Wednesday if they're going to put him on that active roster. They play Washington this week, and not like he would play this week. Next week, they play Cleveland. You're going to put him on the field with Myles Garrett on the other side in that defense? I mean, please tell me the Jets have sense enough to say, Aaron, we know you could play if we were in this thing, but you're not going on the field.
Mike, I don't trust them. I don't. I hear what you're saying. Everything you're painting is smart and it makes sense. And I don't even think you have to have the experience that you both have to make that, or at least have that attitude headed into this. You could just be a pretty normal person and know that this is a bad decision to put him on the field. And it's a bad decision because of what he means to this organization. Everything is tailored to him. Everything, right? From Nathaniel Hackett to the veteran players that he asked for them to sign. Everything is designed to make Aaron not only happy, but empowered. And so the only reason why I have very little trust in the Jets, well, I need like 2 hours to explain why I have very little trust in the Jets. But in this example, my only concern is because I understand and I've witnessed it and seen it and have had enough conversations to know the amount of juice this quarterback has in this organization. That is the only thing that concerns me, because we know how Aaron works in terms of he wants this to be about him, right? And he wants to prove to the world that he can do this. And props to him for setting such an incredible goal and being able to do it and putting the work in. But if he's about the team, if he's about the success of going to try to win another Super Bowl with the New York Jets as a New York Jet, playing now is just too risky. So I like to think deep down he's going to do what's right for the organization. But if Woody Johnson actually has a conversation with him and even considers it, I mean, just blow the whole thing up.
Peak Jets is loading currently right now. We'll see if we get to that point here in the next, like Dad said, couple of days. Dianna, we talked about the job security for Rob Saleh. We actually do have 3 head coaching vacancies right now in the NFL, with more potentially on the way. But as it pertains to Carolina, Las Vegas, and now the Los Angeles Chargers most recently here, what are you hearing about the way that people view these jobs right now that are currently open?
Yeah, every time, around this time every year, and then we start seeing the jobs open up, I feel like the fans will start breaking down reasons why this team would not be great to work for. The Carolina Panthers, David Tepper's too hands-on. He's too much part of the football operation. And then I start having conversations with coaches' agents and actually some coaches myself. And it's like, oh my gosh, they'll do anything for the job, right? So it's just so hard to get a head coaching gig in the NFL. There's only 32 of them. So everyone wants a shot no matter the situation. But with that in mind, you know, a guy like Ben Johnson, who's going to have opportunities and is going to have choices. You know, from his perspective, you look at the Chargers situation, you look at the Carolina Panthers situation, you look at who their quarterbacks are, you look at Vegas, the direction that they're in, I'm not even really sure which direction they're headed in at this point in terms of this roster from top to bottom. You know, the Chargers is always going to be the team that I hear the most from coaches going, like, I want that. In fact, when the Spanos released that statement that they need a new vision after they made the firings of Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco, you know, he was very bold about it. He was, you know, ownership said, we need a new vision here. And I had someone in the league text me, give me Justin Herbert and I'll give him, and I'll give him that vision, or I'll make that vision come true. I'll change the vision, something along the lines of that. I mean, the statement was up for 10 seconds and I was like, oh my gosh. So I think this idea, and I do find it very interesting. I actually wrote about it over the weekend. What's happened with the Chargers organization. And I think we've all been really sold on Justin Herbert, and we should be, because we know the way he's built, his ability to play. We've seen enough good to know he can be great. But it just seems like a lot of coaches have come in and out of there on the offensive coordinator position, also at the head coaching spot. And it just, no one has been able to tap into him. And I think we're going to start changing the conversation if after this next hire, it's still not working. You know, maybe we're overstating some stuff. So I just find that whole organization really interesting. And then, of course, the Panthers. I can't wait to see what David Tepper does and who he decides, because I was told, guys, he's been really self-reflective, like understands he's messed up. And I just think that's really cool to be that rich and to be able to admit, right? To sit there and be like, I don't need to do any of this. I don't need to admit anything, right? I'm worth $16 billion. But he knows he's messed up, and he's been reaching out to some people for some advice. And I think they're going to try to do everything they can to get this right and to get the best out of Bryce Young.
Listen, you know what else can help you know you mess up? When you're paying multiple people for not being part of your organization. At some point, it comes into your mind that said, maybe I'm not doing this right. But we want to get to the holiday season. Real quickly, though, get this one in before we get to the holiday season. Bill Belichick, if he's not in New England next year, is that Charger job something that a lot of people think he may go to?
Yeah, so you know how it works with the Patriots, right? You always wind up talking to people that are part of the organization, but they're not like we talk to people in the building, but those that are in the know right now aren't saying much. But people that are a little bit on the outside that understand the New England way, it's been explained that they think that'd be a tough move for Bill Belichick. But going back to that idea of him having a new job in an organization, he's going to want the power and he's going to want a quarterback. And when you think about it, they don't have a GM there, and we think they've got a quarterback. Well, we think they've got a quarterback. It makes the most sense. we'll just see whether or not he'll be willing to live out on the West Coast. From what I hear, it's not so bad out there.
I would say West Coast Bill Belichick. Listen, Bill, as someone who made the move from Connecticut to Los Angeles recently, there are things about this you might enjoy. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. So we'll see if Bill decides to do the snowbird routine there. Dianna, before we came on air with you, though, we were having a much more passionate conversation than anything related to football here. As you're, I mean, for anyone watching on the DraftKings Network or YouTube right now, Dianna's very cozy. She's got candles lit there. You're trying to get into the holiday season right now. Is this like a tactic to hype yourself up, Dianna? Because I heard you're hosting Christmas this year.
I am. It's my husband and I bought our first home this year, and my siblings are pretty much exhausted by having to host every year for the last 20 years or so. I've always lived in apartments, and because of my career, I've just never really been in a position to host. And I mean, it wasn't even chatted about. It was Dianna, Kevin, you're hosting. So we've got about 25, possibly 30 people coming. Ooh. Kevin and I have no idea what we're doing. Like, we are last night, obviously watching the Eagles game. He's on another planet right now, so he's useless. Oh, yeah. Especially after they lost. I mean, we had coffee this morning. That was the biggest waste of time. It wasn't even. The arguments he's making as to the mistakes there, it's a little bit of a mess. But with that in mind, I am trying to find some Christmas spirit. Because here's the thing, guys. Like, I'm happy. I would tell you, you're my friends. I would tell you, like, hey, guys, I'm struggling a little. You know, it's that time of year, a little blah. I'm really happy. I love my new job. My boys are healthy. My parents are healthy. I like my neighbors, kind of. Although, can I quickly just ask for advice, Mike Sr.? My neighbors do not celebrate Christmas. And they knocked on my door yesterday, and they said that they are going to be redoing their roof over the next 5 days, right? So I didn't really think about what that would entail. I'm like, you slap a little tile on there and you call it a day. Well, the dump truck and that big truck pulled up this morning, and it's going to be in front of my house and on my street for the next few days for my first Christmas. So it's like a big eyesore. So I don't really know what to do.
Well, unfortunately, you can't do a lot about that. I'm surprised they got workers to come to the house during the season like this, the holiday season. So there's no way you'll get them to move. So you know what? My advice, Dianna, is don't stress about things, which I know you probably are because you have a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, a husband who's in the dumps because of Philadelphia, and you got about 30 people coming over to your house. So that's going to make for some pressure for you. All I got to say is start drinking early.
Yes.
And everything will work out just fine.
Here's my thought, Mike. Because it's a big dumpster, guess what's going to be in that dumpster? Because I'm not too happy about it. Mikey and Joey's diapers.
Oh,
that's what I'm going to do.
There we go. Weaponized diapers.
And let me tell you, those boys eat well, so you do the math.
There we go. If you smell the smell emanating from the neighborhood around the Russini residence, you know exactly what time it is here. Weaponized diapers here from the great Dianna Russini. Dianna, we appreciate all the time. Good luck hosting Christmas. We believe in you. You're going to rise to the occasion. You're going to get this done. We hope you find the holiday cheer in the meantime.
Thank you so much, guys. Merry Christmas to you guys. Enjoy all the new family members, the babies, and all the love. And, of course, I love you guys.
We love you too, Dianna. Merry Christmas to you and your family here. They're going to get it done. There is a lot of stress associated with hosting, as you well know. We've, for years done parties with our family friends, the Perianos, and there's a lot of gearing up when it's your home turf all of a sudden everyone's crashing in on.
I could speak from the husband's side. Her husband, just do whatever she says.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Just do it. Don't even ask questions. Don't say why or anything. It may not sound like it makes sense. Just do it. Do the right thing. Do whatever she says and get out of this thing.
Yep. Be coachable, Kevin. Be coachable. Yep.
GoJo and Golic. The year of the backup quarterback continues after Drew Lock's performance last night. Now another familiar name could be sliding back under center this week. So the Steelers, losers of 3 straight games, are likely turning to Mason Rudolph, the backup to the backup. So Mike Tomlin stopped just short of definitively naming him the starter for Saturday's pivotal division game against the Bengals, but he did say Rudolph is the guy with the ball. Tomlin also added he's not ruling out Kenny Pickett, who had tightrope surgery for a high ankle sprain on December 4th. So either way, it's been the year of the backup. We had some solid backup QB performances in Week 15. And guys, you can see this meme here has me lolling. But this is where we're going to kick off our weekly superlatives backup of the week, because there's plenty of them to choose from. Guys, who are we rolling with?
I was going to say, I can't believe what a tight race this is at this point. And also that meme of the dad receiving the same shirt is, one, tremendously on brand given the dad that's on this show, but two, also very reflective of that Steelers situation as they... I'd have to imagine Mike Tomlin is whispering the sweetest nothings into Kenny Pickett's ears right now, pleading with him to come back at this point, because it's not sweet out here. They're about the only ones, Dad, that couldn't get a solid performance out of the backup quarterback, because you look around the rest of the league right now. Case Keenum did just enough to help the Texans come back and win in their game here. Jake Browning has been a revelation, albeit mostly through short passes and some timely big plays. But him, Gardner Minshew, Joe Flacco this weekend here, Drew Lock's addition last night, Dad, I think would be tempting with recency bias here, but I'm still going to go with pretty boy Joe Flacco. Back-to-back 300-yard games for the Browns was nails down the stretch for them, including some big late completions to Amari Cooper. He's come over there and been able to orchestrate that offense to more productive outings than anything Deshaun Watson's done so far.
Yeah, because I go with Flacco as well, because most of the backups we're talking about that are coming in were on the roster at the beginning of the year. Joe Flacco was on the couch waiting to see, get an opportunity with the team, and he's making the most of it. 374 yards. He was only behind Baker Mayfield in passing yards this past weekend. So, yeah, they're fourth starting quarterback, and they're in the fifth slot. I mean, they're right after the division winners. They're the first wild card team right now. So he's got them playing well. You're a former O-lineman. You loved it. While we're in the era of the mobile quarterback, there's something to know exactly where your quarterback is going to be. If I cut protect, I know my quarterback's not going to escape and my guy's going to get him. I just have to protect and let him stay in the pocket. So I go with him. And also quickly on Pittsburgh, Mike, I think Mike Tomlin's in serious jeopardy of his streak ending, of having a team, what is he, at 18 years, above 500. They're 7-7 right now. They finish with the Bengals, the Seahawks, who are certainly seem to be playing for something. We'll see. And then they finish with the Ravens. Now we'll see if the Ravens are locked into a position by then where they might rest people. We have to wait and see. But at 7-7, and now with 17 games, you're either one game above or one game below or worse. And I think he's going to be, unfortunately, in real jeopardy of breaking that streak.
Yeah, no, it looks like it's probably going to go by the wayside this year. As I say that, the Steelers' magic is already loading. Mike Tomlin and his stranglehold on whatever sacrifice he made a long time ago to make sure that was never the case is probably going to kick in there. But they're in very real danger of that, no doubt. Joe Flacco, listen, we got the full breadth of the experience, by the way. He also tossed 3 interceptions in this game. So Joe Flacco, who for so long was the line of demarcation for the is blank elite conversation around the NFL. It's nice to just have him back around here for the discourse, if nothing else here. Let's get here to the next superlative on our list. The been here the whole time player of the week, the guys that you had forgotten about that might have showed back up in this week. Not necessarily in backup quarterbacks, but guys who had already been there. Dad, I think you can go a couple of different ways in this, but it's hard to ignore. We've talked about the Jets portion of the Miami Dolphins win from over the weekend. A lot of us had questions about them coming off that bad loss to the Tennessee Titans on that Monday Night Football doubleheader. How that group, especially when the offensive line's out of whack, can all of a sudden have the gears grind a bit on offense. Tyreek Hill was injured in that game, didn't play in this game. And Jalen freaking Waddle, man, 8 for 142 and a touchdown in this game as the Dolphins reinserted themselves into that conversation about those teams maybe in that next tier down from the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC playoff picture.
That's a good one, but I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield. I mean, Baker Mayfield, I'm still here and still trying to be that quarterback in the NFL. Cleveland first rounder that we've mentioned the road, and Carolina and the Rams, and now with Tampa Bay, was he just a stopgap until they find the next quarterback? They're, at the top of their division, though tied record with, and we'll see if it's even a winning division, a winning record. So there's that as well. But Mike, he basically has to average 170 yards a game in the last 3 games. He'll have a career high in passing yards, which you have to go back to 2019 when he threw for over 3,800 yards. He could surpass that. He's thrown 24 touchdowns and just 8 interceptions. That year when he had 3,800 yards the most, he had 21 interceptions that year. He's not turning the ball over. And we know the grit he has of running the ball and the respect of his teammates. So this is a guy that just keeps banging on the door saying, you know what, keep letting me in that door and I'll prove well for you. As I said, it's still a 500 record. It's not like they're a dominating team, but he is doing extremely well and he just keeps on going.
He does. He's I think we always talk about like the idea of a pro's pro, but I think in the last couple of years we saw him do some of those things, the cross-country game with the Rams where he's showing up on a short week and finding a way in there. I think we've seen an appreciation for his approach that's certainly reflected by a lot of the guys in this locker room. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's a veteran locker room in a lot of key places. Receiver, some of the guys like Devontae David on defense, who I'm sure appreciate the approach that he's taken there. So absolutely great pick there. Let's get to the last one here, Dad. The burst your bubble player or team of the week. Whose week 15 performance ultimately worried you the most about the outlook for them? I'd be curious for you, Dad. You were calling the Lions-Broncos game, and we made a big deal about that Broncos turnaround and how since that 70-point drubbing they took to the Dolphins, they've really changed things up. In a team that had been turning the ball over a bunch during the win streak and really thriving on that, all of a sudden when that dried up, turned the carriage back into a pumpkin pretty quick.
Yeah, for me, it is Denver. Denver was just on the outside looking in, and now they dropped down, I think, to the 11th slot. Did not look good at all. This was a team that was 1-5 to start the season, 0-4 in the AFC, and then they go on that 6-1 tear. Both sides of the ball, offense and defense, were playing extremely well, especially the defensive side. And Detroit just put it on them because Detroit stopped doing the things that were getting them in trouble, mainly the turnovers on the offensive side and mainly with Jared Goff, and they showed the type of weaponry they have on the offensive side and what they can do defensively as well. Again, I think one of the best disguised defenses I've seen all year on guys not giving away what gap you're coming into, if it's a blitz or not. They held it so well, and we're getting free rushes because of it. They played a great game. So to me, yes, Mike, it is Denver that I think cost themselves. I thought this was one of the hottest teams in all the NFL, and could they keep it going and put themselves, I said that was the one. We thought it was between like Denver and Buffalo to get themselves back into the playoff hunt because we thought Pittsburgh was going to fall out, which they have done. And it certainly leans more toward Buffalo right now as far as, what was the outside looking in. But, yeah, for me it was Denver that had it going well and that bubble got burst.
Yeah, I hesitate to lump too much. One of the teams I was thinking about was the Jacksonville Jaguars, who lost their third straight. They got cleaned out by the AFC North in the last 3 weeks. They get a little reprieve coming up, but they got to go on the road to this Buccaneers team that we talked about. It's a bit feisty. And while I think some of the bad fumble luck, Trevor Lawrence losing 2 fumbles in that game, you had the Brandon McManus mixed kicks. You're playing against the Baltimore Ravens, who are one of the best teams in the NFL right now. But it just looked so hapless and lost for that team. I think the turnover luck can even out, but I think a lot like the Detroit Lions, where we talked about, hey, maybe it's worth guarding expectations again a bit. Both teams flirted with us talking about them as a member of that upper crust. And I think for Jacksonville right now, a team that enjoyed a big playoff comeback last year, just getting back to the dance is probably going to be the thing that ultimately defines them. They got a lot of work to still do on that roster.
guys. The Colts got the win against the Steelers over the weekend, but it was not without drama after an ejection for a hard hit on the Colts wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. on Saturday. Steelers safety DeMonte Casey has been suspended for the final 3 games of the regular season. That's also going to include any potential postseason playoff games. Pittman entered the concussion protocol after the hit, did not return to the game. And the Golics now standing by with the guy who was there, the Colts' Kenny Moore, joining the program.
Yeah, very excited. Kenny, we appreciate the time coming off a big weekend. First and foremost, how are you guys feeling? Big win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, it's been a really strong season for you guys overall as you continue a playoff push. So how are you feeling coming off this win?
We did our best to get the momentum back. We were definitely humbled 2 weeks ago. We were back in our stadium. It was a big win for us. It was a big game for us. We knew what was at stake, so we just wanted to turn the table.
It certainly was a great win for you guys. As far as that play we were talking about with Kazia, now suspended for the rest of the year. He's been fined 5 times before that. You're a defender. You're a DB. I think it's the hardest position to play in the NFL right now with the rule changes that are going on. That was your teammate he hit, but also as a defender, what did you think of that hit?
I think it's a sticky conversation. You know, it's my teammate that I'm talking about. It's a guy that, you know, we all want to be aware and we want to be cautious about taking care of each other out there. But you get into a lot of situations, a lot of different angles, a lot of split-second decisions that you have to make. That was a hit on Saturday that took a lot of us out of our seats. You know, that was a tough decision by KZ. Obviously, it was a tough catch to make for Pitt, but you know, when you launching as the guys actually diving to the ground, that's a tough decision. And you know, a lot of guys, they would probably do the same thing that he did. Some guys wouldn't. Myself, it's hard to say what I would do in that situation as far as, you know, it being a big game. You know, I'm coming from the post of the defense. You don't want these guys to catch the ball at all. So, it was definitely a hit that I thought was serious enough to take me out of my seat, actually, to walk onto the field and, you know, get on a knee, just hoping that, you know, Pitt is okay. Pitt is a tough guy, but, you know, you never know how these hits will accumulate, you know, in the later the season. So it's a tough one.
Yeah,
I know it's tough for you as an active player to talk about a hit, especially to your teammate. I'll throw it in here as a former defensive player to you guys. I thought that was too much. I mean, Mike Tomlin even said he teaches the guys to go for a lower target. And I thought he was coming in lower. But again, it was the level of the receiver. Pittman had to dive for the ball, so he was already down there low. The hit looked horrible. I completely agree with that, Mike. But I don't know. It looked like he was trying to go down lower anyway, and the angle of the receiver just took him that way to make it a really bad collision.
Well, and Kenny, you mentioned just, you know, split-second decisions happen, walking away from this specific play, and more just you now being one of the better defensive backs in this current modern version of football. How much have you guys had to spend time, whether it's in practice or talking about this before the season, adjusting your target zones, adjusting the way you play the position based on now how different the rules are compared to the game 5-10 years ago?
I mean, whatever the rules are, you just got to do your best to adapt. It's not something that you can just keep fighting. You know, they made the rules. Okay, we got to adjust to it. Honestly, I'd rather it be safe. It's a physical game already. I mean, I hear everybody talking about, you know, they making the game softer, but it's a lot of games. It's a lot of games, and you want to be durable throughout the rest of the season, the entire season, to help your win, make the best, you know, come playoffs. But, you know, you should never just be out there just trying to take people out. And, you know, I spent a lot of time, you know, after practice with Z, with Julian, with EJ, just trying to make sure, you know, if we're going to be at the point of attack a lot, we got to be at the point of attack making good decisions. And so that's something that we take accountability on each week to – I don't know. That's a crazy hit, though. You know, I was hoping that KZ was going to be all right, too, because, you know, whenever you look at the replay, his eyes are looking down. And so then when they say, you know, hitting with the crown of your helmet, anything can happen whenever you're looking down. So, you know, as a defensive player, your coach is saying get your eyes up whenever you're tackling, or whenever I'm talking to the linebackers and I hear some of the hits out there, I'd be like, hey, hit right here, don't hit here. So you just got to think fast and think right a lot of the times.
The one line that started at the beginning of football and will go all the way through football is see what you hit. That's usually a line that is laid out there an awful lot. Okay, for you, going back to the Panthers game when you had 2 pick sixes, you had your 3 sisters in the stands, one I believe your twin. You went 4-1 since then. I know you talked about them being good luck charms. Have they been to more games? Have they been the good luck charms for you guys? Have you kept winning?
They were actually at this past Steelers game. So they'll be at the game here in Atlanta because, I'm from Georgia.
Right.
So I have a lot of my family back in Georgia this upcoming weekend. And I hope to get them to the last 2 games as well so we can finish out this season great.
There we go. So you got the good luck charm locked down for this. I'm sure everyone in the Colts are very relieved to hear that they're making the trip, knowing what's on the line here. But I'm curious for you. Obviously, we talked about your success there. The defense for you guys has been such a consistent force for the last couple of years. But this has also been the year of the backup quarterback, and your guys' team dealt with that early on this season. Anthony Richardson going down. Gardner Minshew now has been under center for you guys for a while. But what's it like making that adjustment for the guys in the rest of the locker room when you've got such an important change on the team throughout the season?
Man, honestly, not even looking at the bigger picture, but trying to take it one day at a time. I think, it can be a little overwhelming, especially as a younger guy. I feel like we have much of a younger team, looking at everybody on the roster. You just got to tell the guys to just work, man, and just believe in each other. And if you take practice serious enough, you gain that trust of Garner, you gain the trust of the other younger guys to go out there and make the right decision. And, I think that's what it's all been. That's what it's been about this entire season. Obviously losing 5, 10 stepping in. I knew the experience of Tim right away, having to play him a couple of times in my career already. But it's been a really fun season, honestly, just trying to get to know each other and just have a great season for the city, this organization. I think, we've all endured a lot, and is a lot in store.
But, you 7th year in the league, this is the only team you've been on. So you're kind of getting up there as one of the elder statesmen, which I'm sure you don't want to hear at 28 years old. How much did you get? And we only got about 45 seconds left or so. Become that leader when Anthony Richardson went down of what had to happen next?
It's always so in this league, we say it a lot, next man up mentality, and just being confident and ready and prepared for your opportunity. You never know when you'll be called up. My rookie year, I was a special teamer throughout the entire season, and then we had some guys go down with injuries, and I ended up starting in the last five games of my rookie year, and coming into the building week 1 to start in the last 5 games of the season. You never know what can happen within the NFL season. So if you just gotta, stay determined, stay positive, and stay prepared.
Well, we know what's happening for you guys right now in Indianapolis, currently inside the AFC playoff picture right now, and hoping to finish the season strong with that in mind. Kenny, best of luck. We appreciate you giving us some time. Thanks so much, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you again soon.
Yes, sir. Much love. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny.
Awesome. And Dad, we talk so much about Baker and that offense and Jonathan Taylor going back to the offseason, but the defense and what they've been able to do over the last couple of years there has been a huge part of the success there, and Kenny, no doubt, an integral piece of that machine.
Yeah, even knowing you're going to the backup quarterback, even though in this case the backup was a veteran as opposed to a rookie that you had running the show. So for this year, at least, it may have worked out better because you had that experienced backup.
100%. So the Colts trying to keep it rolling in the year of the backup quarterback with Gardner Minshew and the Jort revival in the city of Indianapolis. Guys, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you off into the rest of your day. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us a 5-star rating. Check us out here live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on DraftKingsNetwork.com, the DraftKings YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku. And make sure you tell a friend. Come and check us out there live. But if you miss it for whatever reason, or you miss any of our great guests, like Dianna Russini, senior NFL insider over at The Athletic, or Kenny Moore, Colts cornerback, who just joined us here after a big win against the Pittsburgh Steelers, you can get that wherever you get your podcasts, as well as available on the YouTube channel as soon as we are done with the show. But guys, let's get to this. We have talked a lot about the man, the myth, the legend, Tommy DeVito in the last few weeks here. Obviously, the DeVito mania hit a bit of a snag against the New Orleans Saints, and now it appears off the field, him and his agent Sean Stellato are running into a little bit of a public feud with a pizza joint here. A local pizzeria, Conaglio's Old Fashioned, located in Morristown, New Jersey, apparently revealed Sunday that Tommy DeVito was scheduled to make an appearance there, and then after the fact, they're claiming his agent came back and tried to ask for more money at the last hour. And so now the appearance had to get canceled. Dad, we've seen a very public back and forth here now. Have we already hit the dark side of this news cycle that Dianna Russini was talking about here, the inevitable bad headline for the Italian-American superstars?
Well, it depends on what the truth is here. I mean, if they agreed on a price and then an hour before, DeVito's side asked for more, that's wrong. You can't do that. So where is the truth in this story? But boy, it sure fits in that he has an appearance at a pizza joint, huh?
I did see, though, that there was some clarification from Sean Stellato, who actually responded to this whole situation, and he said that they didn't have a signed contract, which I think the pizzeria was like, yeah, that's true. We didn't have a signed contract. We had a verbal agreement. And the event's supposed to be tonight. And all this came out, yesterday? So it was like, I mean, I don't know. I get it. Sean Stellato, DeVito, they're trying to maximize, this is their moment. The price of the
cutlets went up.
Yeah.
All right? Yeah. The price of the cutlets went up.
This is their moment. And so basically he came back and said, it was a big increase. His fee was doubling. It was going from 10 to 20K, which that's a very significant amount, obviously. So, but there was no signed agreement. There was no, this is business, baby.
Stellato said, it's a shame the restaurant promoted that they would have Tommy when we didn't have a signed contract. We didn't raise the price because nothing was ever agreed to. Sounds like a little bit of semantics there. I'm not sure. Did you talk about this at all? Because you buried the lead yesterday that you actually ran into Sean Stellato at the airport when you were leaving the Lions-Broncos game this last weekend.
I did. We were staying at the Westin, which is right in the airport, so you can they have their own security line to go out, but it was way too crowded and it didn't have TSA or clear, so it was going to take a while. So Sean and I walked back into the airport to go that way. And he had to catch a flight. He was running really late, so we were talking kind of quick. Mutual friend, his wife, and my old teammate Mark Bavaro went to high school together. So we were just chatting and stuff. It was a very nice guy. Was just rushed because of his flight. Call me the old school guy here. But if they agreed, I don't care if it was verbally, contract, whatever. If they agreed, Tommy will show up for $10,000 before they got the signed contract, then show up for $10,000. Now again, I don't know if that in fact was it. If Sean is saying there was no amount agreed to, then we have a he said, a he said agent, he said to a pizza joint, he said. I don't know the answer to that. But even verbally, if it was agreed upon, he'll do it for $10,000, then you know what? Go do it for $10,000.
I think you're right. I think business is business, and it's like now next week if he wants his fee to be $20,000, that's fine. But if you went into it with this pizza joint and you said we're going to do $10K, and then you said actually it's doubling, it's a little.
I do appreciate.
Yeah, is this the hill you're going to go on?
Yeah.
But I do appreciate we are treating this with the utmost sincerity instead of just laughing at the fact that the most Italian string of headlines possible involving this quarterback that's become an Italian hero, so much so that Dianna Russini said people who aren't even Italian are throwing up and repping the Italian flag all over the New York and New Jersey area. that he's now in a feud with a pizza joint. Like, the brand remains impossibly strong. This is an absolute Mad Lib headline that the NFL continues to produce for us, and we should all just bask in it and hope that cooler heads prevail and plenty of pies still get eaten amongst everybody involved here. Jesse, let's get to that, though. We are a show that celebrates large excellence. And I am amazed continually at just how much larger the excellence continues to get.
Everything is bigger in Texas, okay? So Byron Washington, this kid is a junior at Texas high school powerhouse DeSoto. He's gone viral. So he played in Saturday's Texas State Football Championship. He is 6'7", 380 pounds. Okay, so this is like you said, large excellence here, GoJo. He towered over everyone. Can we pull up the photo, please? Because you gotta just see the photo to understand how insane this is. That kid right there, so actually, is 6'4", 215 pounds. The kid that he is manhandling right there. And guys, it really just, everything's bigger in Texas. I mean, what can you say other than that when you see this photo?
It's terrifying. He looks like he's not just trying to block the young man, Caleb Walker, Dad. He looks like he's trying to pull him in and devour him at that point.
That is a monster. I'm trying to think back to the biggest guy. Do you remember the biggest D lineman you ever played against? I mean, I know there wasn't a guy that size, but where especially in high school, where you're just like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this guy outside of maybe cut him?
There is no one that looked like that anywhere in Central Connecticut high school football. So thankfully, I was safe from those kind of monsters there. But then as soon as you get to college, you're humbled and you realize that. But Dad, it just goes to the point. I mean, you look at, in college football this year, Caden Proctor, the left tackle for Alabama, who's a starter on a playoff team, is a true freshman who came in and was darn near 370 pounds. And these guys can move. These guys are athletes at that size in a way that my peanut brain and meager genetic makeup can't comprehend.
So the closest I got to going against a really big guy was when I wrestled at Notre Dame. And it was a wrestler named Tab Thacker who wrestled at North Carolina State. This was before the heavyweight class had a 285-pound weight limit. Now, senior year, I didn't wrestle. And his same senior year, he won the NCAA title. But his junior year, he came in sixth, and I got hurt before the NCAA championships in the regional, so I couldn't go to the NCAAs and wrestle. He is 6'4", 450 pounds. And so, there was a chance we could have run into one another, and we didn't. As I said, in '84, his senior year, he won the heavyweight championship NCAA, but that's a big one. My brother Bob, when he was in the NCAAs, wrestled a guy named, I think it was Jimmy Johnson, was 6'8", 380, who was like a 2 or 3 time NCAA champ. These guys were monsters, just monsters.
It's simply nothing that big should move that well.
Jimmy Jackson.
So, incredible girth there. He's got offers from TCU, Oregon, Texas, Arizona State, Grambling State. Life's going to treat him all right at that size as he looks like he's ready to go out there and move people. Guys, though, we got to get to the third. The story from the internet yesterday that went viral and took everything by storm. Former NFL running back Rashard Mendenhall, in the tweet heard around the world yesterday, his quote, "I'm sick of average white guys commentating on football. Y'all not even that good at football. Can we please replace the Pro Bowl with an all-black versus all-white bowl so these cats can stop trying to teach me who's good at football? I'm better than your GOAT." I appreciate so much, because objectively bad take, right? We all know, obviously, it's bad. It's not anything anyone should say or even co-sign. It's a ridiculous notion. I have such an appreciation for my timeline and God's internet yesterday that we immediately took this and did the right thing, which is had a blast with it, including, Dad, the thing that was the unstoppable force. The one thing I knew was going to come from yesterday, Jason Sehorn was going to trend. Because when it came to trying to draft the white side and figure out who was going to play corner for us, there's really only one name that people know until Cooper DeJean gets drafted later this year out of Iowa.
I don't even know where to go with this. This is one of the dumbest tweets I've ever seen. And God knows we've seen a lot of dumb tweets. I mean, I can't even believe he hit send on this. And he rightfully got dragged by so many people for it. So I don't know why he said it. I don't know what came over his mind. I don't know if he really meant it or looking for clicks. I don't know. But congratulations, young man. That's one of the dumbest tweets I've ever seen in my life.
A lot of different personnel groups that could be the subject of the conversation if we actually played it out. But we'll save that story for another day, and we'll instead ask you to download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.